Hi there, welcome. This is Mark Addington, and we're going to talk about some basics with legal research. First of all, what most people use to research, period, seems to be Google, and that's fine. Google has a lot of wonderful resources, and it does get you to a number of quality information. The challenge with Google from an academic and legal perspective is that it also includes within its search strings a lot of things that are either invalid or unreliable. Therefore, from an academic perspective, it's not as useful a database as others. But there are aspects of Google that you can use to be very effective. And so I want to show you how to do that, at least in the context of legal research. One of the things you can do is put the word scholar in front of Google. And then that will bring you to GoogleScholar, which is a database of much more relevant academic information. It brings you to articles and to case law that are very thorough and very high quality. So GoogleScholar is much more effective in terms of using it as a basis for starting your research than just going to the regular. If you wanted to look at legal concepts in the law, for instance, I practice labor employment law, and we all have a sense of what discrimination is, but there's more than one type of discrimination. There's a concept called disparate treatment. D-I-S-P-A-R-A-T-E, treatment. And disparate treatment, here I had the articles button set, so lots of articles come up about it, from the Michigan Law Review, the California Law Review, from Harvard, Stanford, that discuss this concept of disparate treatment. So this is much more quality in terms of the reliability of the information than to pull it off of a website that might be drafted at a law firm by an assistant and not be truly academic in nature. So I encourage you, if you're going to use Google, to consider using GoogleScholar and going to this information, because not only is it more credible, it's much easier in terms of citing it, and it's held to be more reliable by most professors. In addition to looking at articles, you can actually look at specific case law that deals with a legal concept. And you could choose federal courts or a specific state court, and they have all of the states in the country and every federal and state court in the country that publishes opinions are listed here. So you can select all of them or just a specific jurisdiction if you're interested in researching that. So that's really, really powerful. We're going to look at a case that deals with discrimination real quickly, because I want to illustrate that you can also go to specific cases. For instance, a case that talks about discrimination is a 2009 Supreme Court case. It's entitled Ricci v. DeStefano. This case was a Supreme Court opinion, and here is the actual opinion. But I wanted, before I get off this page or choose the opinion, show you that it was also in the District Court of Connecticut, which is a federal trial court, and it was in the Second Circuit, which is a federal appeals court. So it went from the trial court in Connecticut to the appellate level, and then eventually to the Supreme Court. And so you can kind of see it started at a trial in 2006, was appealed, and that was heard in 2008, and the opinion was issued, and then in 2009 the Supreme Court heard this issue. So this is a very well-known case in labor employment law. Looking at the opinion, let's click on the Supreme Court case. Google gives you a copy of the opinion, which is exactly as the justices wrote it. And you can go through and read and understand, hopefully, all that's involved with this case. And I want to point out a couple of things. First of all, I'm going to bring up on my screen here just a blank Word document. And I want to show you the idea also of citation. If you're going to cite this particular case, then the way you would cite it would be you would underline the style of the case, which is Ricci v. DeStefano, and then put a comma and then the citation. Now the citation tells the user where to find this particular case. And this is the citation, 129 Supreme Court 2658. And I'll tell you what that means. All of the published cases are in books called reporters. This one is the Supreme Court of the United States, and so the reporter is, in this case, a Supreme Court reporter. This is in volume number 129 of the Supreme Court Reporter. So if you had all of the Supreme Court Reporter books in front of you, you would go to volume 129, pull that off the shelf, and then go to page 2658, and that is where the case would be. Now, because this is a United States Supreme Court opinion, you don't have to identify the court. But if it were another court, then you would have to identify the court. So I'll give you an example of that. Here is the Second Circuit opinion, and this was the appeal that went from here to the Supreme Court. As you can see, it has a different citation. It's in the Federal Third Reporter. So if we were going to look at how this one would be properly cited, what we would do is we would go 530, which is volume 530 of the Federal Third Reporter, on page 87. Now this is not a Supreme Court case, so we have to identify the court, and this is the Second Circuit Court of Appeals. So how we would do that would be Second Circuit, and then we would put in the year, and that's how we do a citation. Now, let's say we were going through this, and we really were reading this case closely, and far back in the opinion, there was a quote that you wanted to put into your written work. Let's say it's 5 pages back. Well, what you would do would be that you would put a comma here after the page number, and then a pinpoint citation. And so what this says is that in volume 530 of the Federal Third, the case starts on page 87, but the quotation we're citing is on page 92 in the Second Circuit of 2008. So that's a real quick and dirty on sort of the basics of your legal citation and what you're doing. You're actually giving your reader exactly where to find the case, and if there's a specific quote, a pinpoint site to where that quote is located. So another aspect besides looking at a specific case might be looking at how important that case is. And one of the things you could do here is you could look and see on this page that Ricci, since 2009, has been cited almost 2,400 times. So this is a pretty important Supreme Court case. And you could click on this and see lots of cases that are dealing with the issues that were decided by the Supreme Court. So it's an interesting way to look at, find case law, and then explore concepts further by looking at other courts that have made commentary or have cited, in this case, Ricci di Stefano, for specific reasons. For Webster students that want to do legal research and you're looking for something more robust than Google, you have that, and this is an amazing resource. What I'm going to do is show you that if you go into your connections and you sign in, and I'll do that real quick here. When you're in there, you can go here to your library page. You can also get to this from Webster.com and sign in there if you want. But this is how I like to access it. On the front page of library, you need to make sure you have your Webster ID and call the librarian if you're not sure how to get that information. But just click on this top link of articles and databases. And right here under social science, there's laws, political science, and international relations. If you click there, you can find real quickly this database called LexisNexis Academic. And here they're going to require my information. But once you get to LexisNexis Academic and you sign in, then you'll find another very powerful database. Before Google basically put almost every case there is online, LexisNexis and another company called Westlaw pretty much had the market in terms of legal research. And as such, I was paying thousands of dollars a year for access that is now available free through Google. But as a student, you have access to this LexisNexis database as an academic, and I like LexisNexis better than Google for a number of reasons. We'll start with looking at some of the things we did in Google so I can illustrate them. First of all, click on this box here that says search by subject or topic, and you can see from a legal perspective, you can research cases, federal and state. You can research a database of landmark cases, law review articles, things of that nature, even patent searches, which you can do on Google as well. Okay, we're going to look at, and since we've already kind of familiarized ourselves with Ricci di Stefano, then we'll just go ahead and go to the federal and state case search, and we'll look at Ricci di Stefano. It's signing me into there, and then it's going to run a search through all of the federal and state cases on that, and this is where it brings it up. And here's the Second Circuit case, and the Connecticut case we saw, and other Supreme Court cases, and then of course here is the Supreme Court, is the United States Supreme Court case as well. Okay, so if you put in Ricci di Stefano, you get a number of cases. We know we're looking at a Supreme Court case, so let's just narrow it from over 824 cases down to 10. And if you look at these cases, the one we're looking for is number 8 here. And this is the Supreme Court's opinion. And I wanted to point out this is a lot different than what you saw in Google, on Google Scholar. There's more reporters that are listed here that this is in. You might recognize this citation because it's what we talked about when we were looking for it in the Google database. But there's more ways that you can cite it in other reporters that have this as well. And in addition, it gives you a lot of analysis. LexisNexis has legal editors that read these cases and then describe briefly the procedural posture, an overview of the issues, and the outcome. And so real quickly you can have a feel for, is this the right case? Are they discussing the right things without having to examine the entire case to do so? It also pulls out core terms, so you know these are the things that the case is analyzing and looking at. And then it has something called headnotes, and headnotes is an amazing, wonderful, and powerful feature because it categorizes the main legal concepts and then lists it as a headnote, and you can just click on a headnote about something that you read in here that's important and go right down into the case where that headnote is and read what the court wrote about that particular legal concept. So headnotes are wonderful, not only for navigating the case, but then there are other functions in the database where you can research just the legal concepts, and it's not case specific, it's going through the various headnotes in these subcategories. So powerful feature that helps you to research more effectively. And then there's usually a summary, and then after that you get down into the actual opinion starting here. You have a syllabus, and then here is where the judge's opinion, in this case Justice Kennedy, Anthony Kennedy, wrote the opinion. As you can see, this is substantially more information to help you to understand the cases and what it holds without even reading the entire opinion. You can get good pinpoint accuracy on the main legal topics and how to access them quickly. Also, it gives you links to cases that it refers to. So for instance, here the court might be saying, I see a quotation mark here. Okay, so the court has quoted another court, in this case the Supreme Court decision in Watson. If you wanted to look at Watson, you could do so. You could click on that and it would bring you to the Watson case, and you could find out specifically what the court was looking at in this case. So it's a much more robust. There's links between the cases, there's headnotes, there's a lot of really high quality content through these legal editors that review these cases that help lawyers and students understand the concepts and use them more effectively. I hope that was useful for you. If you have questions, let me know. I look forward to working with you. Thank you.